When did you go to the Super Bowl?
My third year in Indianapolis.
What did that feel like?
As you can imagine, I get asked that all the time. What was it like to play in a Super Bowl, right? But to even have had the opportunity to play in the NFL should have never happened. My senior year, I was ranked one of the top tight ends in the country, and I was projected anywhere from 15th to 32nd pick in the first round. About 2/3 of the way through the year, we play our biggest rival, Wisconsin. I get called to run what's called a corner route. I release. I get to 12 yards, I plant my foot, I turn. All of a sudden, I hear and feel pop, 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 pop. I ended up tearing my abs from the pubic bone on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
It completely destroyed the rest of the season. And a month later, when the NFL draft happened, name after name is called except mine. And I was just holding back tears, thinking, it's over. Here's the miracle. Fast forward 2 months, undrafted, about 5 minutes after the free agent market opens, the phone in the middle of my agent's desk rings. And who do you think it was? Head coach Tony Dungy of the Indianapolis Colts.
No way.
He saw the value in me that 31 other teams passed because of their concern over an injury.
Dude, you're giving me goosebumps.
Tony was the first to win a Super Bowl built on what's called servant leadership. Understanding that the most important asset that any organization has is its people. His belief was that if you build better men, you get better football players. That very first team meeting, we sat down. Tony comes in, and the very first thing he says to us is,
"What?"
And I just remember thinking, I have never heard anything like that.
I want to start at the beginning.
Let's go.
Because you have a fascinating story. Take me from like the very beginning all the way through winning the Super Bowl.
Man, it's really hard to put into words. As you can imagine, I get asked that all the time. What was it like to play in a Super Bowl, right? But it didn't start in Indianapolis. It started in Rochester, Minnesota, where I was born. You know, I grew up in a pastor's family. So my dad's, preached in the Methodist church for 45 years. And, when you're in the Methodist church, you get moved around to a lot of different locations.
It's like being a military.
It's like being a little bit of a military family. Like every 5 to 7 years, you move, and so we started in Rochester, and I go back to those days, Charles, and it was like being in the backyard with my dad, and just remembering him getting on his knees and letting me run into him with everything I had, and just pretending to get blown up and falling back on the grass. And that was really where the seed was planted for my passion for athletics.
Yeah.
And then starting football in Lindstrom, Minnesota, the Chisago Lakes area where my dad was pastoring at the time. And then obviously that moving into Hastings. But I grew up in this state, playing multiple sports that I absolutely loved, that were all a part of shaping that journey, and I never thought that I would have gone from a small river town, Hastings football field, to playing in front of over 101 million people around the world watching the Indianapolis Colts versus the Chicago Bears. So it's hard to encapsulate that into just one word.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you, obviously you played through high school, then you went and played college ball at the U of M, right?
Yeah.
And at what point did you think to yourself, I think I might want to be a professional football player?
I know.
Like
how does that happen?
Yeah. Like, was there a moment, or was it conversations?
Yes. There were moments at every stage, and there were miracles that happened at every stage. When you look at my life and the teams that I played for, to even have had the opportunity to play Division I football and then play in the NFL should have never happened. And that was what was so cool. When I started to really progress my senior year in high school, it was these moments where plays would happen on a field that were just at a higher level than what you would typically see, where people would kind of go, wow, there's something special here. And my journey to play at the University of Minnesota was one of these miraculous moments where, I came out of my junior year, 16 years old. I was always young. My birthday is June 30th. So I was always a young player for the year of school that I was in. And I signed up for the Minnesota Gopher football camp. And you have to understand, like, Hastings ran what's called the option offense. And that's a highly running offense. I maybe caught 12 passes as a wide receiver, my junior year. Okay. So I was not being heavily recruited across the country
to go play college ball.
So my dad and my uncle created a highlight film on VHS cassette. Remember, the VCRs of old. And we sent it around to a bunch of schools, and the University of Minnesota invited me to their camp. And it was at that camp that I just completely balled out.
So that first time you went to that camp, you were like, this is awesome.
Oh man, like you can't even, I ran a 4.45 40, which is really fast for a 6'6" guy at the time. I caught balls over everybody. There was one moment where I was being double teamed and they threw a ball 40 yards down the field, and I went up and jumped over everybody, caught the ball, and took it in for a score. And the wide receiver coach just came sprinting like 50 yards, screaming down the field. So the next day I get invited back for my dad and I to meet with head coach Glenn Mason. And within 5 minutes, he said, we think that you could play right now. And
on the U of M team.
We would love to have you be a Minnesota Gopher.
And how old were you?
16 years old.
And he was like, we want you now.
He offered me a full ride scholarship at 16. Right? Shouldn't have happened.
That is a miracle.
I mean, top receivers in the state are catching 70, 80 balls. I caught 12. But it was those moments, those 12 catches were all highlights. And so those moments gave me an opportunity to perform at a Division I football camp, which led to a full ride opportunity. And then similar with how I got into the NFL, it was total Tony Dungy miracle story.
Tell me.
Oh yeah. Well, my senior year, I was ranked one of the top 2-3 tight ends in the country, preseason All-American, up for the John Mackey Award, which is the nation's top tight end award. And so there was a lot of expectation around my season. About 2/3 of the way through the year, we play our biggest rival, Wisconsin, the oldest rivalry in college football. And I get called to run what's called a corner route, 12 yards straight up the field, 45-degree angle to the corner. I release. I get to 12 yards, I plant my foot, I turn to look for the ball, and all of a sudden I hear and feel popping all across my lower abdomen. Pop, 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 pop. And my legs stop working. And I crumble to the turf. But I caught the ball.
Oh my
I still caught the ball.
So what happened?
Well, what ended up happening is I ended up tearing my abs from the pubic bone on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
And it completely destroyed the rest of the season. And so
that must hurt.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Did you have to have surgery to fix it?
Well, but what ended up being the problem was the tears were so close to the bone that on an MRI you couldn't actually see the tears. So people didn't really know what was going on. And I went to the NFL Combine and met with all the team physicians that were interested in me, and basically discovered that all of the NFL physicians red flagged me as too much of a health risk.
Oh no.
So a month later,
that must have been devastating.
Oh, well, it was when I found out what the outcome was going to be. And a month later, when the NFL draft happened, and I had Minnesota media at the house, because remember, I was one of the top tight ends in the country, and I was projected anywhere from 15th to 32nd pick in the first round.
No kidding.
And across the 2 days of the NFL draft, name after name is called except mine.
So hold on, where are you when this is happening?
I'm at my the draft party was at my aunt's house in Apple Valley, and all of our family was there.
So you're sitting there.
I'm sitting there
in
front of the TV. Media is behind me, and first round goes, second round goes,
nothing.
Third round goes.
Hang on, the clock is ticking, and you hear all these names.
Nothing.
What are you feeling?
I mean, I'm devastated.
Were you like on the brink of tears?
Devastated, embarrassed, really embarrassed. Because this was supposed to be like the epic
moment.
story, the moment, and then it just disappeared. And the second day rolled around, and the same thing. And I remember.
So wait, so you sat through watching this live, waiting for the next name to be your name, every single name, and it wasn't your name.
Yeah.
And then you're like, the evening is over, and now the next day is coming, and you must have been like, this isn't even happening.
You know, it's hard to explain what it feels like when you just see tight end after tight end after tight end going, that you were ranked above, and that your career, you know, was much more significant then, right? So that was two of the most challenging days of my life. And I do remember after those 2 days were over, driving up to my agent's office with my dad. It was a rainy, gloomy Minnesota day, and I was just holding back tears, just looking out the window thinking, it's over. You know, because I'm still injured. Like, we haven't figured out even what this is. And, you know, I had gotten my degree, but I put all my eggs in the football basket. And so it was like having an entire identity ripped away from you, outside of your control. And we get to my agent's office and start to exit the car. But here's the miracle. 2 months before that moment, I had a chance to speak at a huge alumni event at the University of Minnesota in front of about 700 people. And I get to open for Tony Dungy. So I'm the opening speaker for head coach Tony Dungy of the Indianapolis Colts.
And this is 2 months before the
2 months before. 2 months before. This moment where the draft has just been completed. So 2 months before, I get up and I open as a speaker for Tony Dungy of the Indianapolis Colts, former Gopher quarterback. And I get up in front of about 700 alumni and I say, hey, coach, if you really care about the University of Minnesota, you know, if you really care about being a Gopher, you're going to draft me in the upcoming draft. And everybody got a kick out of it. And he was gracious enough to respond. So he's at the podium and he says, you know, Ben, we'd love to have you. Know how talented you are. But we drafted a tight end last year in the first round. So we're not going to be looking at tight ends this year. And then he stepped away from the podium. He put his hand on his chin as if he was being downloaded something from above. And he comes back to the podium in front of 700 people and he says, you know what? I'm going to make a promise to you in front of all these people.
Oh my gosh.
If for some reason you slip through the cracks, if for some reason you don't get drafted, I promise you, I'll be the first person to call.
Stop it.
Yeah. And everybody loved it. It went in one ear and out the other for me because, you know, the chances of that happening were slim to none, and there were still a number of teams interested. So fast forward 2 months, undrafted, walking into my agent's office. The only option left for me is the free agent market, right? These are the leftover players. These are the guys that teams bring in to give veterans a break, and rarely do they ever make a team. And about 5 minutes after the free agent market opens, the phone in the middle of my agent's desk rings, and I pick it up. And who do you think it was?
No way.
Tony Dungy.
Get out of here.
Tony Dungy was the first person to call. And not just Tony Dungy, our Hall of Fame general manager, Bill Polian, was on the phone. So head coaches and GMs are not calling free agents. But they called me and they said, Ben, we didn't think this was going to happen. We followed you through the draft. We understand that you were red flagged for your injury, but this is an injury that we've had experience with, and we want you to be a Colt. So here's what we're going to do.
Stop it.
We're going to send you to the top surgeon in the country to get you better. And we don't even want you to think about playing the first year. We just want you to rest. And on top of that, we'll pay you as though you're a playing rookie.
Stop.
And
Dude, you're giving me goosebumps.
And here's a signing bonus, just so that you know we care and we're serious. I mean, this is the NFL. This is, what have you done for me lately? Nothing. I had done nothing for the Indianapolis Colts. And the miracle in that, Charles, is that the next year, I'm fully recovered. Dallas Clark, the first round tight end they brought in the year before me, goes down with an injury in the last preseason game. So I get to start on Sunday night kickoff against Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh my. Dude, I've known you for 10 years and I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. And the third quarter rolls around against the Ravens, national television. The safety at the time messes up the coverage, leaves me wide open on the backside seam. Peyton sees it, right? Makes the adjustment, throws the ball. Touchdown in my very first NFL game. And I caught the ball, and that safety had regained his composure, and I had one choice, and it was I got to run through this guy. So I barrel through this safety into the end zone. And as I'm getting up off the ground, I realize it's Deion Sanders. Arguably the greatest defensive player in NFL history. So my very first game, I catch a pass from a future Hall of Fame quarterback and run through a Hall of Fame defensive specialist. And I get the game ball because of how well I played over the course of that game. And ever since then, we started 2 tight ends for as long as I was in Indianapolis. And none of that happens without one man practicing a chosen culture built on a belief system to develop purpose in his players. And it forever changed the trajectory of my career. The only reason I was in the NFL for the time that I was on those 2 different teams is because of Tony Dungy and his commitment and his follow through on a promise.
When you caught that ball, I'm sure you talked to Tony in the locker room afterwards. What did he say?
Oh, there's this epic picture that I have at home of me running off the sideline, and it catches us just before we're about to high five each other, right? So there was a special bond that I had with him, not only because we were both Minnesota Gophers, but we had almost a paternal connection. I mean, he saw the value in me that at the time I didn't see in myself. He saw the value in me that 31 other teams passed because of their concern over an injury. And it resulted in becoming a starter on a Super Bowl championship team, which led to a great contract in Cincinnati. And none of that happens without his commitment to practicing what he believes.
Okay, I want to get into Tony and culture and all that in a
100%.
minute, but did you go to the Super Bowl that first year? When did you go to the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl was my third year.
It was your third year on the Colts.
Yeah, third year in Indianapolis.
Okay.
2006 season. The game was in February of 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you won the championship that brought you to the Super Bowl? I mean, what was that moment like?
Bro.
You're like, we're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that game was filled with so many just incredible, powerful experiences. I'll never forget. I was in the tunnel, and the ref was holding back the Colts. Finally, he got the signal that it was time to let us go. So he dropped his hands and he released the Colts, and we went thundering out of that tunnel. I plant my foot on that, freshly cut Miami Bermuda grass, and all of a sudden I hear this familiar voice behind me, Ben. And I turn, and there's my dad.
No way.
My dad had fought his way halfway around the stadium to be in this specific spot for this specific moment. And he was in the craziest downward dog yoga position, reaching over the railing with his hand out. And Charles, wouldn't you believe in that moment, I put my hand up and I shooed my dad away. Because I was like, Dad, this is not the time.
You're embarrassing
Dad,
me.
you're embarrassing me. This is not the time. Like, I'm going to perform in the Super Bowl. I got to work. And I took one more step, and it was like the fist of God just sucker punched me. I honestly physically stopped, and I heard this inner voice say to me, Go back to your father. Go back to where this all started.
He started you.
But what was so powerful about that is there was this spiritual lesson in it for me too, where what is the priority of your life? What does your identity reflect in you as a man? Is materialism? Is a trophy? Is money the most important thing? Or is it found in the foundation of who you are and where you come from? And I had this spiritual experience. I turned, my dad had already started to walk back up the stairs. I went sprinting back into the tunnel, crying out, "Dad, Dad." And he heard my voice and he came back, got into that same crazy position, put his hand down, and I locked hands with him. And I just looked up at my dad and I said, "I love you." And it all started with you. And it did, man. It did. It started with my dad in the backyard, like I told you, when he'd let me just run into him. And it really was this slow motion cinematic experience where I was like whisked back into time, and seeing these moments, that all started with my dad. And I'm so glad that I responded to that reaction the way that I did, because it set the tone for what that game was really all about, and, we went on to win 29-17. Devin Hester, the most deadly return man in the history of football, on the very first play, catches the ball kicked by Adam Vinatieri, runs it all the way back. It's the first time it's ever happened in Super Bowl history. And so you're just sitting there going, what is going on? Just had this epic moment with my dad. Now we experience this play that is possibly foreshadowing the performance of the rest of the game. But I look to my right, there's Tony Dungy paying no attention to what happened on the play. He's talking to the coaches in the headset, getting ready for our offense to take the field. I look to my left, and there's Peyton Manning talking to offensive coordinator Tom Moore, giving no credence to the celebration in the Chicago Bears end zone, just locked in, going over the first 3 to 5 scripted plays, going over those first 3 to 5 scripted plays that we always had to know exactly how we were going to start each game. And I was just kind of enraptured back into this culture of the Colts way, and and at peace, and we went out, and it took about 2 to 3 quarters before the momentum just completely went in our favor, and we hammered them. So one of only 2 Super Bowls in the history of football to rain, and Prince played the halftime show.
He did?
Prince sang Purple Rain in the rain. It was absolutely insane. They tried to keep him from bringing his electric guitar out because, it's raining. It's dangerous. And he was like, hell no. And it's one of the greatest halftime shows you've ever seen. It's just epic. Just an epic experience, man.
So when you guys realized that you won, what did that feel like? Like, what was going through your mind?
I remember looking back, because my parents and my wife and, some of our dear friends were all sitting, to my right behind. I remember just kind of looking back and just seeing the utmost joy on their faces, and the confetti is coming down everywhere, and the stage is being set for the presentation of the Lombardi Trophy, and yeah, it's this magical moment, that any young kid who loves sports visualizes since elementary school coming to fruition. How do you explain what that feels like? It was magical. It was truly magical.
So you're 26?
Yeah, basically this would have been 25.
25?
Yeah.
And you've now won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I mean, at 25.
Yeah.
Right? And after all the confetti settles, you know, and after you move on to play on other teams and do the things you did,
Mm-hmm.
how do you not like go into a deep depression because you were on this
Right.
mountaintop,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm just a normal guy now.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously people introduce you as a Super Bowl champ.
Right.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there some mental battles that go on when that happens?
Yeah. You know, over the course of my career, I've been able to listen to a lot of the players' transitional stories. And even guys like Tom Brady have talked about the same thing after winning that first Super Bowl, kind of feeling like this, or at least having this big question around, okay, well, what's next? Like, what's next? What's the purpose? What is driving me forward? All I can tell you in my life is that probably one of the greatest things that my parents ever gave me was a foundation of faith, because it allowed me to be challenged around around what my identity truly was, right? The question was always, in my family, was always, are you a football player, or are you a man of faith that has a bigger purpose, and football is part of the equation? And so for me, Charles, it was the transition was easier because I knew who I was, and I knew that my purpose and my value was so much bigger than being an athlete. And I praise God for that, because if I didn't have that foundation, that transition would have been very lonely, right? And it would have been, filled with more depression. Now, not that I didn't have, periods in my life where I have experienced, depression, especially exiting the NFL, right? It wasn't so much the Super Bowl experience. It was that career-ending concussion in Cincinnati, and now it's completely over. And how do you rebuild your life? Even when you know what your passions are, music and speaking, but how do you create something new that's provisional for your family, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and that, as you know, because we've had a lot of conversations in our friendship, and you've mentored me a lot in this area. That's been a huge challenge, for me, and that's where you're confronted almost daily, on, okay, what is most important, your vocational identity, or your spiritual identity.
I feel like so many times we wrap our identity in what we do for our work, right? I mean, I know that a big piece of my identity is tied in with IDCOM and the business, but I just can't envision having something end so like your NFL career ended abruptly, and all of a sudden you're like, I was a pro athlete who won the Super Bowl, and now I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
Man, it was like the tearing off of a Band-Aid, but on your entire body.
Oh.
I don't even know how to,
Yeah.
Because I remember, after my career ended in Cincinnati due to concussion, there were a couple of teams that were really interested, and I had some opportunities to get back into the NFL after I recovered. And I'll never forget, my agent calling and saying, "Hey, we have an opportunity for you to go and try out with this team." And so I kind of, I put together a family meeting. Parents came over, and I presented this option. And my dad right away said, "If you choose to play in the NFL again, I will never watch you."
What?
Yeah.
Why did he say that?
I think because at that point, this is the dawn of the concussion crisis. This is the flooding in of information about the long-term effects of repeated, traumatic brain injury. And I think he was being a voice of clarity for me to really challenge that identity. Okay, you've played twice as long as most. You've been on a Super Bowl championship team. We don't want to see you put the future of your life at risk.
And like a good
And
dad.
honestly, I needed to hear that. I needed that confrontation.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing for business, by the way. That's a great thing for business. Confrontation is so important. But content and purpose and delivery of that is what is the key, right? That's the culture of communication. What are you saying? Why are you saying it? And how are you saying it? Right? And because my dad was coming at me through love and through empathy, through grace, but also bold.
Were you mad at him when he said that?
I think I remember reacting defensively at first, but pretty quickly kind of that spirit of clarity took over. And, you know, it made me realize what was most important. You know, we had Alora, our first daughter. And so life was totally changing into something new and something that required me to be whole and to be healthy and to be well.
Well, and I know there was so much around the concussion, traumatic brain injury thing. You carried it into a music career.
Yeah.
So how did you get it going in music? I mean, I know you've always been passionate about music.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how we met.
Right. Listen, you know, it's funny because when the television show Glee was out, if you remember, you know, how successful that show was for a number of years, I was being called like the real life Glee guy, because that really was my life. Like I was in 5 choirs in high school, show choir, competing. My dad was a vocal music major before becoming a pastor. Yeah. So I grew up with training, like singing was actually a real thing for me. And
who'd have thought an absolute monster on the football field would get off the field and sing you a tune?
I know, right? It was a great way to deceive the defense. I would often sing to players. No. Can you imagine?
They're like, who is singing right now?
But it did create some. It created some unbelievable experiences. You know, I started singing professionally in college. Doing all of the national anthem events. I got asked to sing national anthems for both President Bush Sr., President Bush Jr. At different political races. And then, believe it or not, I'm the only NFL player in history to do this. But the very first preseason game in my career in Indianapolis, I got asked to sing the national anthem against the Buffalo Bills. So I go out in front of a packed stadium, the RCA Dome in Indianapolis, and I sing the national anthem before I ever took a snap. So the Indianapolis marketplace experienced me first as a singer.
There's no way this guy's going to beat us.
And not a tight end. And it was awesome. I crushed it. And, you know, the whole team, nobody knew. And so it was kind of this awesome surprise. And that led to some just amazing experiences. I signed a record deal while I was playing in Indianapolis. I toured with some of the top symphonies in the world.
Yeah, and that's how we met.
You
ended up, we met through somebody in the music business.
Yeah.
And this person came to me and said, I want you to direct this music video for this guy. And this is back when I was doing video production, film.
Yeah.
And when we met, I was like, oh, this guy's so cool. Like, this could be really neat. And then you played me the song.
Yeah.
You Will Always Be My Girls.
Yeah.
It's about your wife and your kids.
Yes.
And it was so moving. I was like, oh my gosh, I can see this video unfolding. But there was a story behind it.
Well, it was connected to, you know, to concussion at the time. You know, the drama was around the connection between concussion and chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
That's a mouthful.
With this brain disease called CTE. And I had just been asked by the American Academy of Neurology to be their national spokesperson on concussion, and they're the most prestigious neurology association in the world. And so we were kind of in this situation where I had a message to tell, right? It was a pro brain, pro game message, right? I found the balance between celebrating what the NFL gave me, but then also talking about the importance of our brains connected to our identity. And we needed something to crystallize that message. And that's where the song came from. And then you became the conduit, to bring a story to the world that did that. And man, if you remember, like I testified at a congressional hearing, talked about writing this song and this music video. And immediately after that hearing, it was like Washington, D.C. was like, we got to see the video.
We dropped it.
And we dropped it. And like within...
It blew up.
It blew up. Like within 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden, like jumped into the, mid 100,000s. And then it was onto the millions within the first 2-3 weeks. And so...
And it's on YouTube still.
It's on YouTube still.
We'll put a link in the description so people can go watch it.
Yeah, you got to watch it. It's great.
And this was back in 2014?
2014, man. We were, and you were, you were so good, by the way. I mean, when you think about it, like not only did our friendship grow through that experience, but, and this has been evident in your career, I think your ability to operationalize a story. I mean, whether you walk through the halls of your HQ and you just see the story being told, like you have this ability to take the creative and combine it with the operational. That's a rare quality in business. Usually you have the operationalists and then you have the creatives.
Yeah.
And you're the combination of the two, which is deadly.
Yeah.
In business. It's really good, right? But you brought that to that production. That to me is what made that film so special.
Yeah. It was so special. I mean, it was amazing. And your wife, Karen, did such a great job. She played your wife, which I was against initially.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think your wife should.
I know.
She's not an actress,
right,
dude.
But I knew because of the emotion that had been in the house through that injury, and the visceral personal experiences she had with me in those last 3 concussions when I was diagnosed with amnesia and a number of these. She was the only one to live through those. And I just believed that if we put her into specific situations, that you would see her make that emotional connection, which she did, man.
I mean, she brought me to tears watching her perform in the music video. I was blown away. I was like, this is insane. She should be a Hollywood actress. She's so incredible. And she's a mom of your children.
Yeah, 4 girls.
4 girls.
It's amazing.
So help me understand when you look back at all of this, because you're doing something very, very much tied to your career in football, right? The lessons you learned. But when you think back on it and those lessons you've learned and brought with you, it sounds like a lot of it came from Tony Dungy.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what are the things that you, looking back, really have taken into your life?
There's so much there. Tony was the first to win a Super Bowl built on what's called servant leadership. His belief was that if you build better men, you get better football players. How cool is that? If you build better men, you get better football players. Understanding that the most important asset that any organization has is its people.
I agree with
right?
that.
So standing in the face of a transactional culture to inspire the power found in a relational culture.
I mean, especially with something as transactional as the NFL, where it's all performance.
It's a metric-based, performance-based industry. And so the belief that if we're going to build a culture of integrity and courage and excellence and execution, right, we can't just put these as value principles on a wall or a website and not have built a system of belief to practice the development of those principles, right? He's the one that taught me that culture doesn't have to be subjective. It doesn't have to be this ethereal thing that every company talks about, but it can be an objective system that you can practice in order to develop the best qualities within the human condition that are possible. Because when you do that, you pour purpose into people. You pour significance into people. You give people value that they've never had before. And when you do that, they will give you everything they've got.
Mm.
It's not just for a paycheck. It's because they love, value, and respect you as a leader, right? And it's that whole idea that, like the acronym for family in football is forget about me, I love you. Isn't that cool? Forget about me, I love you. The power of selflessness. What happens when you bring 53 of the most egotistical, masculine, powerful men on the planet together through selflessness? You build a team that nobody can dismantle.
So it's no wonder Tony Dungy is one of the most famous coaches in the world.
Because of the impact that he had on people.
Yeah.
Not because of the wins.
Yeah.
The
wins were just a result.
He's built legacy relationships with his players. And I would argue that one of the most common things I hear from founders, owners, CEOs of companies is this intrinsic desire for legacy. Well, legacy is a story. And what do you want people to read when they read your story? How is the impact of your legacy going to be presented to the world? That very first team meeting, we sat down. I remember just being nervous. I'm in an NFL team meeting room. Peyton Manning is sitting to my left. There's 5 Hall of Famers on that team that are sitting in that room. Dwight Freeney, Edgerrin James, Marvin Harrison. I mean, the list goes on. Bill Polian, our general manager. Tony Dungy, our head coach.
It's like a room of legends.
It's a room of legends, man. It's a room of legends and legacy. And Tony comes in, and the very first thing he says to us, Charles, is, if you're sitting in this room and your entire identity is wrapped up in a sport, you've totally missed the purpose of your life.
He said that?
You want to talk about sucking the oxygen out of the room? If you're sitting in this room and your entire identity is wrapped up in a sport, you've totally missed the purpose of your life. And I just remember thinking, I have never heard anything like that.
That's pretty
come out of a head
bold.
coach. And I'm looking around the room and people are just locked in. Like they're just nodding. I mean, it's a belief system that everybody has bought into. And that's what I experienced over those 4 years. And so when I retired and began building my speaking business, my first question was, well, what is my story? And I couldn't get past this powerful culture that Tony Dungy created, right? Because he also taught me that you will always have a culture by design or default. You will always have a culture by design or default, because culture comes out of the beliefs, assumptions, and artifacts of every community.
Hang on, I want to slow down what you said. You will always have a culture either by design,
yeah,
or by default.
Correct.
Meaning culture's there, whether you design it or it just happens on its own.
Yeah.
It's there.
The godfather of culture, Dr. Edgar Sheen, this is a man that countries would hire to come in and do culture audits on the entire country, on the community, on the government. Describes culture as this: every culture in the world comes out of the espoused beliefs, assumptions, and artifacts of the community. In other words, what you believe. Why do you believe it? The assumptions. What are your assumptions? What are your perceptions? What are your opinions? Some of those can even be subconscious until they become understood as reality. And then the artifacts are the symbols. They're the representation of the foundational and espoused beliefs. So every community in the world, it doesn't matter whether it's corporate, whether it's, whether it's a high school. I mean, every community in the world, because culture comes out of human belief, right? Means we're going to have one.
Yeah.
So if we're going to have one, why not design it?
So how do you design culture when you think about any company or team, these are people who have a variety of backgrounds, upbringings, belief systems,
Yeah,
ideas that are definitely not the same.
right.
So, how do you take an NFL team or a company and create common belief systems?
You have to take the same approach to the human condition that you take to business strategy. And I know you do this really well, right? You create a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. You have everything mapped out. How many CEOs, how many business owners do that for the human condition?
I
Do
mean,
you have a 1 year? Do you have a 3 year? Do you have a 5 year plan for the outcomes you want to reach for the development of your people?
no. I don't understand
And
what that
that
means.
okay, that's where it starts, right?
So what is that but what does that
Okay,
even mean?
here's the greatest case study in the history of the world. Has nothing to do with religion. I want you to look at this through a business lens. So one of my mentors was an elite business lawyer. He was also the founder of Health Store, which was the world's first franchise built out of a nonprofit model. So
Health store?
Health Store, right? Healthstore.org. So he built African nurse owned and operated pharmacies that he franchised through a nonprofit model. And he won an award for this. He won the International Franchise of the Year award. And when he won that award, he was invited into the upper echelon of the franchise community. So he's sitting at a table like this with some of the biggest leaders in franchise, the DeLucas of Subway, and the list goes on. And he's telling me this story, and he says, Ben, I couldn't believe this, but the question was brought up at this table. Who's the greatest franchise CEO in history? And every one of them agreed it was Jesus. But listen, I'm not talking about church here. I'm saying that these founders of the most successful franchises in the world were looking at Jesus through a business lens.
Okay.
One man took an objective belief system, taught, coached, and developed 12, and said, go replicate this. And today, 2.6 billion people on the planet identify Christianity as their faith. It's the greatest evidence for a scalable belief system that the world's ever seen, and it's unstoppable. So what do you do with that?
Yeah, what do you do with that?
You start by realizing that culture is not subjective. You start by realizing that through developing objective beliefs, inspiring your team to be in alignment towards those beliefs, and the value principles that are the artifacts that reflect those beliefs, and then spending time as a leadership team saying, okay, if we've identified these 4 value principles, we need to articulate deeply what we believe, why we believe, and how we believe they should be practiced. And we need to create a system of practice that we can integrate into our business strategy. So not only are we developing ourselves transactionally to reach our KPIs and to reach our business goals, but we're also have created culture KPIs where we're set out to reach human development goals and standards, so that over the course of the growth of the company and the success of the company, in parallel is the growth and development and the success of the people that you're working with.
So when what first comes to mind for me is you've got all these people that have different backgrounds, upbringings, beliefs, religions, ideas. Obviously, not everything is going to resonate with everybody. So how do you create a culture knowing that you're working with a group of humans, whether it's 2 or 2,000 or 200,000, that all have different ideas on the world?
Yeah, so remember when we're looking at culture through a corporate lens, we're not pulling in, individual political beliefs or individual religious beliefs, that can be so personal to individuals. We're talking about corporate value principles.
So, like, for example, we have core values, right? Our core values at IDCOM are positive, creative, effective team player, right?
Correct.
So we train on those
Right.
every week. So beyond that, beyond those 4 words and teaching people about them, how can I make a better culture?
Well, the one question I would have for you is, how much in alignment does your team really understand those value principles?
I think
Number
it
one,
depends on the
if I were to
person.
go ask all your employees, can you recite the 4? Could they all do it?
Yes.
Good. That's rare, right?
We train on it every
But it's
week.
because, okay, so perfect example of you by default understanding the powerful undertow of alignment.
Mhm.
You're already practicing it,
Yeah.
right? If I were to go around and ask all of your employees to define with total clarity what they believe, why they believe, and how they believe those values should be practiced,
That's where it falls apart.
that's where it falls apart.
Yeah.
Because what happens is oftentimes as humans, we communicate through assumption. So even in your training, you're bringing your perspective that comes from your foundational beliefs about your 4 value principles.
Mhm.
And you're assuming that the words you're using to describe or to explain or to educate are being received exactly the way that you want them to be received. But there's no way for you to absolutely know that, right? And so that's where this gap that's where this gap is, but that's where there's this powerful opportunity to take the value principles and go deeper into the belief structure of those. And once you can establish those, it gives you a template that now you can build practicable solutions that are in total alignment. And that's where you then hire towards those beliefs, you develop towards those beliefs, and you learn from your employees.
So how do you scale that? Like if you were to give advice to somebody like me who wants to scale that idea
Yeah. So,
properly
right.
without screwing it
Yeah.
up.
How do you go from 1 to 12 to 2.6 billion?
Right.
Okay. Well, you have what's called a Bible. You have an objective book. It's a manual. It's a training manual.
And this isn't like your employee handbook.
And no,
This is different.
well, this becomes its own manual,
So
right?
it's like the culture manual?
If you recall, like the very first product that I developed is called the Culture Creed. A
Yeah.
creed is defined as a set of beliefs that guide the behaviors and actions of people. So in my very first company as a chief culture officer, which was a large private equity company, right, 28 companies across 9 different industries, the first thing that I did is I took the 8 core value principles of that company and I surveyed executive leadership, understanding deeply what they believed about integrity, why they believed integrity mattered, and how they believed integrity should be practiced. And right, we took those survey results, those objective, non-negotiable beliefs, right? And that then turned into a 32-page culture onboarding and educational training manual that was
Really?
used in the interview process, used in the onboarding process with curriculum, and then also used in the continuous development of people, especially your managers, right? And so there is an example of taking what is typically subjective and ethereal and turning it into an objective strategy that fits within and should be guiding the business strategy of the organization.
I like how you said it's used in the interviews because I guess it would prevent you from making hires of people who don't resonate with those ideas.
Yeah.
Which is like a huge disaster, by the
Listen,
way.
the CHRO of Netflix became famous when the Netflix culture marketing deck got leaked to the public.
Say that one more time.
The CHRO of Netflix, she became famous when their culture marketing deck got leaked into the public. So now she is being called into all these interviews to explain, this culture marketing deck. And what we discovered was a company that looks at culture through the lens of black and white. There's no gray area. And the first thing that she presented was that whenever an applicant is chosen to come in for an interview, they send them the culture marketing deck.
Like beforehand.
And they tell them to study it because it will be a part of the interview process. Then the first question they ask the applicant in the interview process, did you study the culture deck?
That's awesome.
And then this is what she said on the podcast. If they say no, we say goodbye.
Whoa. So that's it.
She got a lot. She's got within the HR community, she got quite a bit of backlash for her black and white response, but that is it. If you
How
didn't,
far in advance do they send it? Do you know?
I mean,
Enough time to read it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we're talking about a PowerPoint slide deck of, 10, 15, 20 slides
Yeah. It's not like a book
that
you gotta read.
are digestible. You don't have to have it memorized, but it sets the tone for understanding the applicant. And it also creates a stronger foundation for an interview to include the non-negotiable belief and value system of the company. Okay. And here's the thing, because obviously, like DEI has been a huge topic within the corporate marketplace for the 3 years. When you bring in exclusivity, meaning when you bring in a chosen belief and value system that's been developed and can be practiced, it actually makes the opportunity for an applicant more equitable.
For sure.
Because what you've just done is given them more of an opportunity. You've empowered them to make a better decision for their life. And on the back end, you've protected the organization from making a decision that might not put the right person in the right seat. And so you've created a more equitable hiring experience for both the individual and for both the company because you have objectively defined.
Yeah, and you've prepared them.
Right. Subjectivism is when we create our own truths. And as your organization grows, especially when you think about yourself as a small to mid-cap successful business leader, would you rather have a community of team members that are relatively in alignment towards the company's belief and values, or would you rather have an ecosystem that is left to truth being whatever they choose truth to be about the beliefs and values of the company?
Yeah, I mean, that would be horrible to have that because you have no common ground.
It creates culture cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Right. And so we want to bring as much clarity to that. Right. So most companies struggle to define their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Most companies struggle to decide how to hire towards their culture. Most companies struggle with how to develop towards their culture. And then the last platform is most companies struggle to direct how to improve their culture. And that is the key, is understanding what your employees believe about the culture you've created. Because if you give them the opportunity, they'll tell you where improvements need to be made. And if an executive leadership team is willing to listen and to learn, right, and to execute, you'll instantly create trust.
I think before this conversation, if you'd have said, Charles, what are you doing in your company to create better culture? I think I would have gone right to the idea that, we do an awards dinner and we do kickball and we do this, we do a barbecue and we'll do a chili cook-off. You're like struggling to come up with things and activities, but really that's not the heart of it. The ideas are the heart of it.
Well, let me first just affirm you in that. When you come across companies like the one that I have spent a lot of time with in private equity, where the leadership is healthy, then a lot of times you find a default culture foundation in the company that is relatively healthy, but it oftentimes remains surface level, found in activities, found in, the kind of these momentary opportunities that create an ecosystem that is more enjoyable to be in, but doesn't really get at the heart of the development of the human condition. Like how many people on that kickball team are going through struggles that you don't even know about. And they might show up and they might put a smile on their face, but they go home and they're lost. Right. And so we want to tap into this powerful, like Tony Dungy did with us. If you build better men, you get better football players. And oftentimes companies and leaders, they look at culture as a boulder. You just talk about it and it feels like, holy cow, this is so big,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
is.
it is a big thing, but culture is not a boulder game. Culture is not about picking up this massive weight and throwing it into a pond. Culture is a pebble game. Culture is about the constant, consistent throwing of pebbles into a pond and creating ripple effect after ripple effect after ripple effect, that all run into one another and continue to grow. Culture is about moving the dial 1 to 3% a year,
Mm.
right? And that is the key. It's how do we practice a strategy and create a system that allows us to start to improve the human condition in ways we've never done before, and to do it one micro step at a time, right? And the next thing you know, been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years, and you have this culture now that is making an impact, a transformational impact on people's lives.
So if I wanted to take one step this week or this quarter to create better culture in my company, what would one simple step be that I could do?
Well, I think, okay, I mean, there's a lot of practicality in this. And I think, again, if you look at it as a boulder, you're going to kind of freak out and go, okay, how do I even begin to do this? And it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be seen through a simply profound approach. That's why EOS has had so much success, because what did they create? They created as they say it,
System.
yes, but they call it a practical and tactical operating system.
Mm-hmm.
That is what culture is as well. So when you pause and you think, what could I do differently this week? Okay, how could I change my mid-level manager meetings? Maybe it's taking those meetings where you're meeting with your leadership. When do you meet with your leadership? Like,
Tuesdays.
you meet, okay, on Tuesdays. What's the agenda of that meeting? And how can you shift 5 minutes of that meeting to talk about the human condition?
And when you say human condition a lot, what do you mean? Like the people component, the touchy feely stuff.
No, it's not. I think that's a misconception. I think I think culture has been labeled the soft skills. And what CEOs end up doing, or business owners, is they end up immediately building a barrier between human development and revenue development, right?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, even though it's directly connected. From 2017 to 2022, US attrition cost the corporate marketplace $220 billion.
Just in people
And
leave.
Gallup found that the number one reason for people leaving their job was culture.
That ain't a soft skill.
That's not.
That's a hard fact.
That's a hard fact. Okay.
So when you say human condition, talking about what do you mean?
It could be as
Give me
simple.
something tactical.
It could be as simple as the first 5 meeting is with your leaders, is simply asking the question, how are you doing? How's life? How's your family? Are you going through anything right now that I can support you in? Right? We're going to talk about today. We're just going to focus 5 minutes on positivity or on collaboration. You take one of your value principles, right? And you use that 5 minutes to inspire them towards the value of collaboration.
Yeah,
And
I think that you're totally right. In EOS, the level 10 meeting we do, the first few minutes is called segue, and that's where you share personal and business highlights.
right.
And actually, it's probably my favorite part.
Yeah.
Is because I get to hear about what's going on in people's lives.
Right. It's those types of glimpses. Or, for example, I teach a lot on the culture of the huddle. And the huddle is the epicenter of all distribution of information at the beginning of every single NFL play that is essential to being successful on the field. There are industries that do this very well. Nurses, for example, or surgical teams, right? They have what they call a huddle system. Nurses do it 3 times in every shift. And the huddle is only designed for them to come together to ask questions of each other about the different cases on the floor that they're dealing with and how they can support one another. And they're doing it 3 times a shift.
That's a lot. So it must be impossible.
Possibly, but if the huddle is, you know, a 3-minute huddle, can you spare 9 minutes? Can you spare 9 minutes a day to connect with your team on a meaningful level where you're all, you know, where you're all coming together in alignment towards supporting one another, right? And how does that change? What's the ripple effect of that over time, right? So, you know, you meet every Tuesdays, but is there an opportunity maybe a couple more times a week where you just huddle as a team, as a leadership team for 3 minutes?
Is there too big of a group to huddle? Like, how many people should be in a huddle? Like, my leadership team is 5 people, but on Mondays we do something called the win meeting at 9 in the morning, where everybody in the whole company meets if they're not on a show, and we all meet together. That would be way too many people to do a huddle intimate enough
Yeah,
to get
for
there.
sure, for sure.
So is this like departmentally, or is this, I mean, what's the
Yeah,
best
I
way
mean,
to do that?
I think, you know, I think that, you know, that 2 to, I mean, I can give you a football, you know, 2 to 11, something like that. But again, it's about intentionality. It's going to look different in every company, but you need to see the value in, you need to see the value, and you need to believe that if you create more purpose, value, and significance in people, that they're going to do better work.
For sure.
And why is that the soft skills? I don't, it's actually frustrates me, you know, when you learn the character of a business owner if they don't believe that matters, because they're there for one reason,
And it ain't the people.
and it's to make money, right?
Yeah.
And so, which is what we all want,
But
right? That's the
but money's a result of doing these great things, right? And I think if you do them better, the result is better.
Oh, 100%. And that ties into that legacy opportunity. So when you do culture, when you create a culture of purpose, not only are you going to build a family, right? Or a strong team. Some people don't like the idea of building a family because it's different than business, right? Which is understandable. Not only do you build a strong team, but you literally transform people's lives, right? The other acronym that was really powerful for us is that we have the only belief engraved into the side of our Super Bowl ring of any team in the NFL. We have the word faith that's engraved into the side of the ring. Had nothing to do with religion, right? The acronym I took away from it was freedom for all individuals to trust and hope in each other. If Tony Dungy could get 53 of the most diverse men on the planet to trust and hope in one another, right, there was nothing that we couldn't achieve. And the reality is, according to what you believe about the impact you want to have on people and business, is you can create a transformational legacy of improving people. And that's what Dungy did. That's what Dungy ultimately did in my life. He was the first person to call. And it changed the trajectory of my life, and has been foundationally something that I lean on all the time as
Not just your life, all those players and their families,
right,
and their colleagues.
100%. Yeah. And you know, there are fascinating companies like you look at Chick-fil-A. When you go through Chick-fil-A, when you go through the drive-through,
I don't, but sure.
Okay,
You better not be going through Chick-fil-A.
No, but have you ever, and you say, you know, and you say thank you.
Oh yeah.
What do
No,
they
they
say?
have the best customer
But what do they
service.
say though?
It's my pleasure.
Okay, you don't even go, and you know that they say it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
But you don't understand that was a pebble that was thrown into a pond. Guess how many years ago?
I don't know.
35.
Wow.
It's taken 35 years. And now a guy that doesn't even go to Chick-fil-A often knows that they say it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. And
That's like a tsunami at that point.
but that's what I'm getting at here. And that slogan came out of an intentional marketing meeting that simply said, how can we make people feel 1 to 2% better when they leave the drive-through? And they said, well, what if we were to just say, like, hey, it's my pleasure to serve you, and we make it all about service.
Mm.
So again, simply profound opportunities to provide purpose, value, and significance. You don't have to overthink it, but you do need to understand that when you make it by design and when you build a system that you can practice is when you're going to have the most scalable impact that you can. My favorite acronym for system is save yourself time, energy, and money. Right?
That's good. I need
Right?
to write that down.
It's 100% true.
Save yourself time, energy, and money.
100% true.
System.
Yes, and that's what you need to. That's how you need to approach culture. Is that as a system?
I would imagine that this book in front of me that you wrote called The Champion's Creed has a lot of this stuff in it.
Deep dive.
Deep dive.
Yeah. So a lot of times my keynotes are more about inspiring towards looking at culture through the lens of belief.
Mm-hmm.
Because every company does mission, vision, values.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. And they sit around a board table. I'm sure you did the same thing. And you talked for hours about what you believe in order to identify those four.
Yeah.
And then all of that meat, all of the fruit that comes out of the what and the why just kind of goes off into the ether. And then you get, 4 nice things put onto a website or onto a wall. And then you just hope that people are going to, through osmosis, be in alignment and to be developed towards those things. Right. And that's where the book, every chapter is filled with stories, right? Inspire, teach, coach, inspire is the story arch of every chapter, right? So every chapter you'll be inspired. Every chapter will give you teaching and coaching in order to actually be able to, approach culture through design.
So can I get it on Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Is it on Audible yet?
It's on Audible.
Did you read it?
Was I the voice?
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't let me do it.
They wouldn't let you do
And
it?
I was like, wait a second.
You're like, but I'm a singer.
Yes. Like I could even provide melody to the.
You could sing the book to me?
It was kind of a crazy thing because they said the reason why we have professionals do it is because there are book buyers that are fans of certain voices.
Oh, like the reader, the voiceover guy has fans. So then they'll buy the book because
people will just buy it because he read it. So I thought that was.
You're like, well, if it's more sales, then I guess twist my arm.
Okay, you saved me time.
One thing I like to ask at the end is, when it's all done, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh man, when my life is all done,
yeah,
I want to be remembered as a man of faith that behaved with authenticity and integrity. I want to be remembered as a man who unconditionally loved his wife and his family. I mean, I think that, when it really comes down to it, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I've had these moments of like, man, what if I lost everything? And all I can come back to is that as long as I have my faith and I have my family, I'm going to be okay. And so I guess, not to give you a corny answer, but that's really ultimately all that matters to me. Charles, if my 4 daughters meet wonderful men of integrity who love God, who treat them well, right? Who, give them an opportunity to have their own family and they know who they are and they're thriving and they're happy. Like, I don't really care about anything else. That would be so cool. I'm not excited about the 4 weddings that I have to pay for. That's why I need my speaking,
get some book sales
and my
here.
book sales to get going. But listen, and I think you brought up you had an important question. Like you have to, once you understand that culture is objective, you realize that it becomes a product, right? And that culture creed not only becomes an onboarding and educational training manual, but it also becomes a powerful business development tool. You want to separate yourself from every other company that you're in competition with. Be the first to actually hand over a manifesto, a manuscript that says this is why we're different. And they get to look through a beautiful 12 to 15 page document that defines deeply with clarity what you believe, why you believe, and how you believe it should be practiced, right? You look at it through, and you taught me this. I remember this is probably a year ago, and I came up here, as I do often, whining,
I don't
things
look at
aren't
it that way.
things aren't working, and how do I do this and how do I do that? And you said, follow me. We walked into your boardroom. You drew a big circle on the whiteboard, and you put a small little dot in the center. And then you hit it with the marker hard, and you said, this is the only thing that you need to focus on. You have struggled to mark your target and put everything you have into that one target, right? And that was a game changer for me. And that's kind of what I've been doing the last 2 years. That book is a result of that picture on that whiteboard, right? And guess what you were practicing by default? Human development.
Yeah.
Because I'm your friend. It's easy when it's with somebody that you care about.
Yeah.
Right? So you took time out of your day, you poured into me. You poured more purpose, value, and significance into my life because we knew each other, right? So you already know how to practice these things.
Yeah.
And that has resulted in a book. It's resulted in, a blossoming speaking career. It's resulted in me developing my own culture software SaaS product so that I can come in and help companies do this effectively and through scalability, right? So it's
So
all
good.
there. It's just actually making it the strategy and creating the systems to practice it.
That's so good. How do people find you online? What's the best way to reach you?
I'm super accessible. I love LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. So please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, stuff like that. But I really spend a lot of my business networking time on LinkedIn. And check out benutechtspeaks.com.
All right.
Yeah, we just launched a new speaker reel, and it's unbelievable.
Oh, I'm going to go watch that.
I'm so excited about it.
Ben Utecht, this has been incredible. It's been a real honor, and I can't wait to see all the big things you do.
Yeah, back at you, man.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, if you like this episode, make sure you subscribe, share it with somebody you like, and of course, make sure you check out my company, IDCOM. We produce conferences and events all over the US, and if you know of a conference or an event that's looking for the best company in the business, check out idcom.com.